I think I underestimated also the reach of this show. I knew it was going to be a success. And I said it'll probably never, reach those same levels of Game of Thrones reach as far as the zeitgeist goes, right? Because that's a different thing other than just winning Emmys and stuff. Like Succession is a phenomenal show and it still hasn't captured the zeitgeist. I was wrong. If you look at the Twitter impressions and not just Twitter, but YouTube, any social site that kind of tracks these metrics, this episode is destroying records. Even before it was out, it already had as many ratings as the last episode of Succession, which people say is the best. And I'm not saying one's better than the other. I don't want to make it all tribal, but I'm just saying I did not realize how big this is potentially going to be.
And this will take me to, as you're going to have to help me with this. Okay. This will take me to the Mama Kill in the room. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
The Mama Kill.
Yeah.
The elephants in Lord of the Rings. Is that how you, elephant in the room, right?
Yeah.
Because a narrative that will begin next week, next week at least, is going to be, just because of timing and everything, is this versus Rings of Power.
Right.
I mean, that narrative will begin next week when Rings of Power comes out. So, I mean, now that we've seen House of the Dragon, what are we thinking a little bit here?
I mean, kind of. Go ahead, Ez. Actually, you have a mistake in the game.
No, I just want to say. I mean, I think it's gonna be really, really interesting. Couple things. All right, here we go. Let's dive down this, because what this did, Jimmy said something interesting about the stakes of this the show and just the reach, right? I think you said just in terms of how people are, they went back in, everybody who was there, that audience that was there at that season 8 went back in and said, let's check this thing out. And they all went, wow. And then they went, oh my God, this actually matters and is tying into the main series. There's like a secret. They mentioned like the freaking Night King. I mean, it's all like tying to that. That's something I didn't expect. I didn't see that, just even as somebody who was going to go watch it anyways. So that's huge. It's set. It's locked in. Now in Rings of Power, they're doing stuff right now also that is movie level. Everyone's saying this is like a movie. This is like a movie. Rings of Power is also going to bring like a heavy hammer up in here. The other thing that's going on there, I mean, I very well believe that the stranger that we see in that is like either Saruman, Glorfindel, one of the wizards. So you're going to see like again, that tie back to why does this matter? The Rings of Power. You're going to see Sauron. You're seeing things that matter later on. So very similar to House of the Dragon, having that tie back to Game of Thrones. You're going to have Rings of Power tying into like, you might see a good wizard like Saruman. Saruman might actually be the guy that we're following in Rings of Power, who's actually helping people fight off Sauron. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that they're bringing to the table and saying, watch us. Like Galadriel is the main character in that. So it is going to be like a couple of Titans up in here just going at it, which is awesome. It's bringing everybody to the table. The other thing that they've done, they're doing next week, like some massive sort of for free. They're posting tickets by noon tomorrow that you can go watch Rings of Power in theaters the day before that premieres. What's that do? You watch episode 1, then you say, got to get Prime, got to see episode 2, and so on. Right? They know. I mean, they're pulling everything out, right? I mean, they both have done the red carpet stuff. They've gone crazy. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's literally just all the award shows. It's just literally it's either Rings of Power or House of the Dragon. I mean, it's just like this back and forth thing, which is fine, which is great.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean, I just think one, we're not going to get a balanced take on it from our good viewers tonight because we're Westeros people here.
For sure, okay, for sure. Absolutely.
I am cheering for Rings of Power. I think it has way more questions to answer than this show does, especially with how people feel about certain lore decisions or whatever. I don't know. We'll have to see. I honestly I don't even know if it's. I can't really put any words on it because I just have to see Rings of Power at this point because I knew House of the Dragon was going to be competent. I knew it was going to be a competent show because of the history of it. I was still blown away. And I think that's saying a lot for someone who has an extreme bias and is very optimistic. So I just got to wait and see. I got to wait and see. I don't know.
See, and that's why tonight's episode for me was so impressive on so many levels. That's why I'm like, it's an absolute 10 out of 10. I would give it like a 50 out of 10 because look at all the. Let me just go down the list of everything that this show had going against it. Right. For starters, most sequel or successor shows of any main franchise typically fail. They're very few and far between that even succeed enough to get a handful of seasons, let alone any show that can actually ever be more successful or as successful. I mean, they're very, very, very rare. Go look at almost any sitcom that's ever had a spinoff. Like Friends, one of the most successful shows in history. They tried a spinoff with like Joey, flopped so hard. It's very rare. Star Trek was able to pull it off with Next Generation. Cheers to Frasier, which actually was more successful, but it's pretty rare. I mean, it's very rare to have any sort of sequel show ever succeed at all.
Yeah.
Let alone something that in theory could be better. So you have that just going up against it in the first place. Then, of course, you have all of the hang up of season 8. People were like, I'm so done with this franchise, all this other stuff. So now you add that to the mix where like, no, this show has to be good. If you want to turn Westeros into a Star Wars or Marvel or DC, Harry Potter like franchise, it has to not only do well on its own, it has to do well in spite of some hangups of the final thing. Then you add in the fact that like, this is the new baby of like a multi-billion-dollar, exchange from AT&T to Warner Brothers Discovery, where they're like, hey, we're banking on this being like the whole deal for our company. And then the show is just freaking sick on its own. I mean, and then you have Rings of Power that it's going up against. Like I'm not even nervous, worried, whatever. Not saying Rings of Power is going to be bad or anything, but it's like just seeing what I saw tonight, like it will, if Rings of Power is the greatest show that's ever existed, this show will still be fine going up against it.
Oh, absolutely. It would be like you said, it is done enough on its own, just as a show without all the other stuff going on, all the other hoopla or the baggage or the context to it by itself is just great. And then it does so good at tying in and wrapping up stuff or just making things matter. It's good on its own.
I'm going to be honest, and I'm just being transparent. I don't really care about Rings of Power. I'll be honest. I've been excited because it's fantasy and that's kind of what I do and whatnot. But I just feel like I'll get to it when I get to it. Right. I'm ready for episode 2 of House of the Dragon. I'm focused. I'm focused here.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people too. Here's the thing. I think a lot of people will. What they've done in this very first episode is to say, I don't know. I know there's gonna be all this like the battles with dragons and back and forth, the High Towers versus Targaryens and blacks and greens. But we have really, just to wrap up the Rings of Power conversation or whatever, it's just a huge question mark for even Tolkien fans, even that fan base. They just have no idea what it's going to be. So that by itself is also like alluring and very much like, okay, we got to go sit down and have a watch of this. But like you say, we already have a world here. Like this actually already fits in with something else we really love. And there's a snow show coming out. Like they've already jumped ahead and said, hey, this is actually going to matter and tie into a ton of different projects. So it's kind of really got that going for it.
Yeah. I think even still, I would actually give the benefit to, regardless, even before this episode even aired, I would give the advantage to Game of Thrones just because, or House of the Dragon here, because Game of Thrones was only, really, it was like 5 years ago, which is crazy to think.
It's only 3.
It was 2019. Yeah. So we started in 2017. So sometimes I think about
I got you.
Yeah. That's why I kind of think that my mind always jumps there. Right. It was like 3 years ago. Right. But there was a big time jump in between season 8 and season 7 because it took a while to film. So Lord of the Rings, I mean, I guess the Hobbit movies, were a while ago, but the Lord of the Rings movies were even kind of further, away.
23.
Yeah, which is that's crazy to think about.
we old boys, we're old.
And now Rings of Power is going like thousands of years before, as opposed to just a few hundred.
Yeah, it's tough to kind of put it to like how does it matter? How does it fit into like a universe? Also, they're separate, right? They're different. They're produced by Amazon versus like New Line, and so
whereas this is HBO picking up where they left off.
It's all in universe, and it all kind of fits and matters, and is a different piece of the puzzle. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm super excited for Rings of Power.
I'm excited to see what it is.
But I do get why this is like, so we can think back in our recent memory and say, I know what's going on here, and I know how this ties into that, and it is massive. And I just didn't expect it in episode 1.